In this episode, we're paddling 36 miles of the Skagit River, from Newhalem to Concrete. This wild stretch has a little bit of everything: Class 3 rapids, long meandering pools, and stretches of remarkable solitude. So let's dive in.
Cascadia! Greetings, fellow Cascadians, or the Cascadia curious. I'm getting ready for a trip up to the Sunshine Coast, which is about a 6.5-hour drive up into British Columbia. I'll be taking a couple ferries to get there, and then a small water taxi to get me even further up the coast to a starting point of my hike, which means, though, it's time to make some trail food. I've got 3 different energy bars here, and while I'm not going to go into the recipes, I will post a link in the description of this video if you're interested in making your own. But just a quick note on the Cascadia Bio Bar, because right now is the perfect time to forage for one of my favorite ingredients to these bars, which is the salal berry. Now, this berry is packed full of omega-3s, antioxidants, and it just adds a wonderful dark berry essence to these bars. So if you're out and about, keep your eye out. But that's it for now, because before we head up there, we gotta head that direction. So let's get going.
The Skagit River. I'd originally planned something considerably more ambitious. A source-to-sea journey beginning in British Columbia, where the upper tributaries gather and eventually flow south into Ross Lake. I'd reserved camps all the way down Ross and spent months working out the logistics. But as often happens in Cascadia during late summer, a wildfire changed the plan. The Border 2 fire was first reported in mid-July near the international border. A month later, it had grown to nearly 15,000 acres, closing the northern end of Ross Lake and eventually much of the route I had planned to travel. So I adapted. My second plan was to take a water taxi to the Desolation Peak trailhead, climb to the historic fire lookout, and begin paddling south from there. Not the lookout, but back down at the lake. Then that area closed too. So, Plan C. Put in below the dams at Newhalem, point the Packraft downstream, and go with the flow. I didn't really know how quickly I could travel this river in a loaded Packraft, or how far I'd get. For reasons you'll soon see, this particular journey would last only a couple of days and cover 36 miles, ending in the town of Concrete, where the Baker River joins the Skagit. This is that story. We reached the Seattle city-like company town of Newhalem in the early afternoon, and after the drive, stretching our legs seemed like a good idea. The Trail of the Cedars follows the Skagit through magnificent stands of western red cedar and Douglas fir. It also passes through part of the landscape burned by the Goodell Creek fire in 2015. More than a decade later, you can see the forest regenerating around you. And looking up at the surrounding hillsides, the scale of that fire is still remarkably apparent.
All day I cleared brush away from my home, ignoring the calls coming in on my phone. As ash started falling like snow to the ground, a wildfire is coming for me. A hail of fire blazing up through the trees.
As for today's adventure, this would be my first time taking a packraft through this section of the Skagit. I've run this stretch several times in larger rafts, including just a few weeks ago with my mother and the fine folk of Triad River Tours. If you'd like to experience this part of the Skagit but aren't prepared to run it independently, I highly recommend going with an experienced outfitter. I'll leave a link to Triad in the description. Here are a few highlights from that trip.
is. Looks like an osprey. About to dive in for a fish. There it goes. Looks like it just caught a little fish. Forward 2, 1, and 2. Forward 2, 1, and 2. I want everybody to do forward 2, 1, 2, and give me your best battle cry. And forward 3, 1, 2, and 3. Hey. And we are not done yet. That was awesome. This is the second part. We call this Dolly Parton. That wave right here. I want everybody to go forward 3, 1, 2, and 3. And forward 2, 1, and 2. Forward 2, 1, and 2. Nice. Way to go. And forward 2, 1, and 2. All right. We've got one more section. It's called the Skagitator.
You got a scagitation in your throat?
I got a Skagitation, dude. Let's go forward 3, 1, 2, and 3. And then forward 2, 1, and 2. Yoo-hoo! Everybody give yourselves a paddle high five. Way to go.
Soon enough, though, it was time to face the fiddler. This time there would be no big raft, no guide, just me, a fully loaded Packraft, and a Class 3 section of the Skagit.
Like a corn shallow current or a precipice. Bad ideas all forming like a cloud, and I can't remember how, but I lost you in the crowd. Born at night, dead by day, just a slow and endless burning open hell. By candlelight you flew, and I can't remember why I still sing to you. The wind it blew, and the mountains moved. Still there's nothing I could do to change your shade of blue. I'll catch you in the night, release you come the day. Know the reason why I never asked you to stay. Soon I'll lay you down into a bed of straw. Soon I'll break you down and catch you when you fall. Soon enough I'll reap the pearl that's hidden in your jaw. Soon enough I'll leave this world. You'll miss me when I'm gone.
Cascadia! Cascadia. Whew. It's probably 4:30 now. I'm kind of telling myself to start looking for a place to camp around 6 o'clock. It gets dark around 8. So I'm going to regroup here, and some of my stuff got wet, unfortunately. I don't know, my earbuds too, they're kind of popping. They could handle a little moisture, but unfortunately I didn't have this pack completely cinched up, and some water got in there. So nothing big except for that really handy electric little pump I use to fill this thing up. Hopefully when that dries out it'll start working again. But in the meantime, I will go to plan B. You'll see. You've probably seen it before if you've watched the videos. So yeah, I'm gonna regroup here. I just had a peanut butter and jelly. I'm gonna get something to drink, and then I'm gonna hop back on this river and put in a few more miles before we call it a day.
Later, I passed the remains of an unfinished bridge, a strange piece of history sitting quietly beside the river. Construction began in the 1940s as part of an effort to improve access to the surrounding mountains, specifically a mining camp. But the project was abandoned during the Second World War, I suspect because the steel was needed in the war effort. The construction never resumed. It's a nice, pleasant section. I think I'll paddle for another 45 minutes or so and see if I can't find myself some level ground. It's nice when the highway's quiet. Highway 20 runs right along the side here, so at times there's some big trucks or motorcycles that go by and take up some of the sound waves, but a lot of it's pretty mellow like this.
to the ocean, as true as he can be, rushes back into the sea. Oh, oh,
Well, it's a little after 6 now, about a quarter after. This is a fine looking spot. Highway 20's through those trees. You could kind of see cars going by. Hopefully this isn't somebody's private property. And if it is, we'll see how it goes. Because I'm bushed. I'm gonna set up here and did about 12 miles fighting the wind in spots, and my knees kind of feeling it. I banged it when I tipped over in those rapids. Had some adrenaline going at the time, so didn't feel it until now. Hello. Well, it is getting to be evening. I'm gonna have my dinner. I was feeling nostalgic, so I'm going with the old classic chili mac, and got
an IPA there, so I'm gonna go sit down by the river and enjoy that. Paddling in a packraft is a lot more kind of stretched out than doing a kayak, so it's a little, the movements are exaggerated. So I'm a little stiff, but I'm sure this IPA will help. And it is so wonderful down here. Like in the last hour and a half on the river, I saw one person fly fishing on the shore once, and other than that, I had the river all to myself. So like I said, made it about 12 miles. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Like I mentioned before, I have a lot of different bailout points if I want. I'll give it a go. But yeah, I'm sure we'll enjoy the day tomorrow, and I will enjoy the rest of this evening. I can't believe I just totally lucked out on this spot. I mean, couldn't be more perfect. I was actually starting to get a little worried because I was paddling and then I wasn't seeing anything. And it was after 6, which was my cutoff point, but I was provided this, so I'm happy. A lot of my stuff is wet right now. And my knee, to kind of prove a point, this is my good knee. And this is where you can see the difference there. Ouch. So I've got a bit of a knob. I don't know what I hit it on, but I put my money on a boulder. Got some birds over here. And the salmon have been jumping. Like I've seen 3, and they look about 16 inches or so. They're nice sized salmon. But yeah, in that current there on the backside there. Oh, again, what a lovely spot. I feel very fortunate. And it even came with a picnic table, which is awesome. So I'm probably gonna call it here shortly. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Well, the angry squirrel is telling me my time's up here. It was a lovely night. Once the Highway 20 traffic died down, it was just me and the river. The fish were jumping most of the night. So the plan is to tidy up this morning, make some ramen, but first, coffee. Need coffee. It'll be a long one today. We'll see how it goes.
'Twas on a cold November day, and the wind was round the side, when we heard the dreadful news of a family lost in the tide. The warm winds on the mountains rained here that melted off the snow, and mist had raised a neighboring stream and caused it to flow. A family living near the banks, not dreaming of the fear, were startled by the crashing waves that were coming now so near. This is a fear we must endure, death is near. So shed a tear and strum the heartstrings of the shoemaker's song. No doubt the father's loving heart was filled with noble thought of a way to save his family dear from the horrible storm it brought. He first secured some seaboards and hurriedly made a raft, and quickly putting his family on, dashed down upon the raft. A father's love for his family, he tried to sail him on. His lifeboat soon began to sink, and his hopes began to fall. This is a fear we must endure, death is near. So shed a tear and strum the heartstrings of the shoemaker's song.
I did take the precaution of walking around one hazard at a place called the Eddies, where a large strainer was blocking part of the channel. I'd actually been here just a week earlier during a training with Skagit Technical Water Rescue, where we'd taken a closer look at this exact hazard. I've since officially joined the team, and I'm looking forward to continuing to build my swiftwater knowledge and skills, both for adventures like this and, more importantly, to better serve my community.
Father from the raft did leap, and tried in vain to hold drifting boards of floating raft as the water dashed drowned so cold. The family parted here in grief, and when the night came on, none but the father was left alive to bear his grief alone. A darling wife and 40 sons, a daughter brave and true, were lying now in the vale of death, but where they were they knew. The mother was found on a bed of sand, one son daughter lost upon a drift, and 3 songs. Oh, for that blessed and glorious day, when pain and sorrow is o'er, and the fear of death shall never be felt. On that bright celestial shore, this is a fear we must endure. Death is always near. Always near.
By this point, the throbbing in my knee was getting pretty hard to ignore. On the mellower stretches, I'd prop my leg up on the bow and let it stretch out whenever I could. It wasn't stopping me from paddling, but combined with how much longer river travel was taking than I'd anticipated, it became the deciding factor in my exit strategy. Concrete was starting to look like the right place to call it today. Found myself the perfect little spot for a break because I was getting low on energy. I'm gonna try one of these walking tamales. Haven't had this flavor, but I have had one. My mom had picked up a variety pack, and first one was quite delicious. So yeah, I'll try to replenish myself. I will replenish my water supply because it's nice and clear here, but just a little ways further we'll be meeting up the Sauk River. Will be spilling in, and that's heavily glacier fed, mineral rich, and I don't want to clog up my filters if I don't have to, so I'm gonna drink a bunch of water here and fill up my bottle, and that should get me quite a ways. So we'll be on the river again shortly. Coming into Concrete, I was looking for the Baker River kayak launch, and then I passed it. By the time I realized my mistake, the current had already carried me beyond the mouth of the Baker River. Turning upstream, I suddenly found myself paddling hard against the outgoing Baker River just to claw my way back toward shore. And that was enough. 36 miles of the Skagit River, from Newhalem to Concrete. I'd learned a lot about traveling this river by packraft, particularly one important lesson. It takes longer than I thought. So rather than rushing the rest of the Skagit, I'm going to come back and experience it in sections. Next time, I'll launch from this very spot and continue from Concrete toward Mount Vernon. And eventually, I'll follow the final reaches of the river through the Skagit Delta and out into the Salish Sea.
Have a good one.
You too.
For today, though, this journey ends here. Wild Fox picked me up, and we made the very necessary post-adventure stop at the train wreck in Burlington for fried oysters, halibut, and prawns. Not a bad way to finish 36 miles on the river. And thanks for coming along. There are plenty more Cascadia adventures ahead, so hopefully see you down the stretch.